to convey why we're going these directions, okay? So inside of Twin, we've exported this as an FBX. When you launch Twinmotion, you want to be doing it from the Epic Games, what do they call this guy? The Epic Games Launcher, okay? It is going to take care of your sign-in credentials. It is going to make sure things launch correctly. So I am already logged in. You should this should, once you are logged in, you can see that right here. It should remember your login for the most part. I'm going to go to this location. This also will let you know if you have updates, things that you need to be working through. One of the key things though is this is a list, right? When I come to here, like this is for the professional version, the 2022.1.1. That's not the version you should be using. You're on the .edu version, okay? So I'm switching to that, and I have to do that every time. I wish it would remember that. Come on, team at Twinmotion. But it's all good. This also, if I have a project in a previous version, like the 2019 version, something like that, which I still run, I typically am not too wild about trying to open up a 2019 project in the 2022 version because a lot of things have changed. It can act really, really buggy, okay? So I'm going to go to 2022, and I'm launching that from the Epic Games screen. If you have a shortcut on your desktop directly to Twinmotion, something like that, I don't recommend using it. You're going to go from the Epic Games launcher. Things are more stable. Your logins are already completed. It just works better, okay? And that's not coming from my experience. It's actually coming directly from the team at Twinmotion, saying this is the right way to run it. So it takes just a couple of seconds to launch, and we are going to pull up this default scene. So the first thing that you're going to notice is the navigation in any of the real-time softwares is really different. Okay, show of hands, gamers. Okay, show of hands, gamers that don't want to admit they're gamers. Cool, right? It's actually a few on both of those. Show of hands, who has ever played a game on a computer? Okay, good, almost everybody. The control scheme is not like Revit at all, or Format, where you orbit around things. It's sort of the first thing that you have to get through your head. We can switch the way the navigation works, and if you become so disenfranchised with this system, I will show you how to do that, but with all good intentions, I am not going to show you how to do it, because I want you to get it in your head that when you switch to Twin, immediately you should be switching your frame of mind to I'm now in an immersive environment, right? I'm no longer in an environment where I'm building something. Now I'm going to be exploring something, okay? So the basic navigation is I'm going to use the right wheel or the right mouse button to look, okay? So right mouse button is going to let you look. Then you're going to use WASD as your primary points of navigation. So W is going to move forward, and the right mouse is essentially going to allow me to navigate to wherever I'm looking. A lets me move sideways. D lets me move sideways. S lets me move back. I have two other tools that I use on occasion, but not a whole bunch. Q lets me move way down here. E allows me to move down. Q allows me to move up. Okay, so I'll use those on occasion to just sort of bump my navigation, right? Usually if I want to go down, I look down and use W. Now, Twin is going to handle everything from a single object, like visualizing a chair, all the way up to visualizing an entire city. And I've done both, okay? And it handles it super, super well. But at times, I need to be moving really slowly if I'm at the chair scale. At times, I need to be moving really fast if I'm at the city scale. To understand the navigation, right over here on the right, I've got a little eyeball. That's for everything that's happening in the scene. Okay. The first thing that you'll see is the sun settings. So that allows me to change time of day. And the scene updates dynamically, which is super cool. And I can set up latitude and longitude as well. We'll get to that. So that I can have exact shadows. Right underneath that is my speedometer. So if I do that, I've got airplane speed, drive speed, bicycle speed, which is the default, or walking speed. The important thing to note on those to keep you immersed in this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I can select airplane speed, and I'm going to hit W. I'm moving super fast. In fact, I can go really quickly outside of the world and create a mess. Right? But the easy thing to remember is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 being the lowest speed. So if I hit 1 on my keyboard and W, I'm now moving at walking speed. If I tap 2, I'm now moving at bicycle speed. 3, car speed. 4, airplane speed. Cool. So I'm using those constantly because I constantly want to be moving at a different speed based on what I'm looking at. And I don't like to go back up to this menu to do it. I want to stay in the scene. Cool? All right. Also on this right-hand menu are screenshot pedestrian mode. So if I click pedestrian mode, click, it locks me to a surface. Right? So now, even if I'm looking down, I am no longer, or looking up, I'm no longer navigating. I'm not free-flying anymore. I am walking on a surface. And that includes, if I bring in, let's go to the left menu, Objects, Primitives. Let's bring in a box. I'm just going to drag and drop a box. And I'm going to scale this box down a little bit and out a little bit. Right? If I start walking towards that box, I guess it's still not, let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. I will walk on top of whatever that surface is, as long as it's something that I can step up and over. About 1 foot or so is about the right height, okay? So, any surface that it detects, any ground plane surface, it's going to, again, behave like you would as a normal pedestrian. So let's go back to, I'm going to close that really quick. If you notice VR mode, we will get there, but while I'm in Twinmotion, if I have a VR headset attached to my computer, I can go directly into VR while I'm in the software, which is super nice. Got a lot to talk to you guys about VR this semester. I also have my different views, plan, section, elevation, setting up isometrics. I have sections through a clipping thing that I can do, and my navigation shortcut, which may be on by default for you guys. Is this up? Was this up by default? Okay. For me, I like my real estate. I like my screen to be as open as I can make it. I would suggest turning that off. Like once you know the basics of navigating around Twinmotion, and you can just do that from the sprocket and hide navigation town. Okay. So I've got this right-hand side stuff. The other thing that I have over here on the right, if I click this little arrow, that's my scene graph. Okay, on your scene graph is everything, every object in your scene. So right now I've got starting ground, which essentially is that brick pattern. So I can turn it off, get a little eyeball. It does not list the backdrop. I have to turn that off and on another way. And then I've got my 1 meter box. Okay, super important thing about this is when we get into Twinmotion, a lot of times we are designing an entire world, right? It's big. So as this box begins to be populated with thousands of things, it's hard to find things in the scene, right? Even just with this, I can't really see my box. So this tool exists so I can find my box. It also helps. I can right click and rename something, like rename Dave's box. Okay? If I need to find my box for some reason or another, Next, most superest importantest shortcut key to me in this program is the letter F. I remember F by thinking focus. If I went to focus in on the box, I can select the box from my scene graph. I can hit the letter F, select it, letter F, boom. Snaps my camera directly to the box. That's the other one. So I use 1, 2, 3, 4, WASD, and F constantly in this software because it allows me to navigate immediately to those different things. Just below that is statistics. So this shows me, essentially how many frames per second it's running, which is important based on what kind of content you're trying to create. Again, more on that this semester. I often use transform way more than I use the stats button. Just a second. This shows me the position of my object, right? So if I need to line things up, and the position is defined by this, which is typically set to the move gizmo or widget or whatever you want to call these things, right? So this allows me to move things around, rotate, etc. But as I do that, you should be seeing this update right through here. So it has its scale, its rotation, and its location. X, Y, and Z, degrees rotation, and percentage of scale. And that's located right here. You won't use it a lot this semester because as you're learning this content, usually you're building things in Format, you're building things in Revit, you're pushing into the software, and everything kind of comes in together. But as you move from beginner mode to expert mode inside of Twinmotion, you'll find yourself using this quite a bit. Jared. Yeah, so the question is VR devices. Yes, I have about 4 different virtual reality devices. The one that I am very much obsessed with right now is the Quest 2. It's fabulous. I have it running through a USB-C link that's attached directly to my computer, and then I'll be showing you guys as well this semester in sort of some short takes how to get things working remotely on the Quest so that you don't have to have it connected or tethered to a computer. Really, really easy stuff to do. And yeah, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now because I'll be talking until like noon if I do. But it is super relevant to architecture, you guys. Super, super relevant to architecture. Okay, so that's the right-hand side menus. Okay, left-hand side menus. Bling. This you can think of as your architectural entourage. Okay, so it starts, the most relevant one that it's going to start with are materials. Okay, in Twin, what I would like for you guys to do, oh dear, going fast here, is if you don't have a box in your scene yet, I want you to go to Objects, Primitives, and just drag and drop something into your scene. Right, so there's a 10-meter box. It's got planes, it's got wedges, it's got all kinds of groovy stuff as a starting point, okay? But we do want something in our scene for these next couple of things here. Because where you're going to start often with this stuff is, on this left-hand side, is materials. Okay, so materials, it has a really excellent default setup for materials. Really extensive material library. I will show you guys throughout the semester how to expand and customize your material library. But as you're starting, there's not going to be too many materials that you can't find as a basic starting point. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if I wanted this to be a wood floor, right? I'm underneath the materials tab. I can open up wood. I've got all these options for wood. Let's throw onto this a nice maple wood floor. Not too wild about the scale of it, so maybe I want to scale that down just a bit, decrease the size of the planks, and I have something like that. If I'm not sure, okay, well, how big is this really? Like, how wide are those boards? Are those 2 feet or 2 inches? right? And we don't really know. But again, we're working in 3D space. We need to always be working one-to-one. So let's go back a few steps. And let's go to characters. So this has a full set of animated peoples. So I can just go to animated humans. And I'm just going to take first dude. And I'm just going to, again, drag and drop. And put said person right here. And now I can look at the floor and be like, yeah, that floor is way off to scale. Right? So I want to get back to this material. It's a tool for it. Material picker. Looks like an eyedropper. Same thing, you should have used that eyedropper for some kind of configuration in softwares many, many times before. So if I go eyedropper, select the wood, I can go right back to my scale and decrease the scale of that down so that it works better with the size of this person. Right? That seems about right. Let's go over to this. Let's say I wanted to take this. I think this is a 10-meter cube right here. And I'm going to go back to my materials tab. And let's make it a brick wall. So I can go to bricks. Let's make it old, dirty bricks. Because they're super cool. And those look about right. Let's verify it by putting somebody next to it. So I'm just like constantly dropping these cool little animated peoples by stuff to make sure things look right and read right. Pretty easy. Lots of drag and drop on all kinds of things. Okay. My poor peoples are out in the sun. So let's plant some trees, but I can't really plant the trees on the brick. So I'm going to go back to materials, and I'm going to go to ground, nature, and let's kind of make it look a little bit closer to grass. Then I can come back into my library, vegetation and landscape, and now I can start planting trees. Same thing. I can just come in and let's do a turkey oak. Right about there. And now we have shade. Now, important to note, I want you guys to look at the shadow. It's moving. That's because, again, they don't treat this like it's a still, stagnant thing. They're trying to get it in your head that you're part of a living world with an atmosphere, seasons, humans, everything. Right? That is where they're taking the software. To the point where let's back up just a little bit and let's start bringing in some of our own content to this. Okay? So I'm going to delete the cube, delete the human, delete the base, delete the tree, delete the other human. So we've covered a little bit of what this panel is. Largely think of it as entourage. Right? So let's go into some of my work panels for the scene right down here. Okay? This operates in terms of how you use the software top down. Right? So if you notice, this is a little arrow into the box. So this is about importing. This is about our context and location. This one's about our setting, creating media, and exporting it out of the software. So the workflow really is top to bottom on this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the import and open. Now, let's take a big step back here really quick. If you notice, there are a couple of import options. One that you're going to see advertised a ton is this direct link. Inside of Revit, there is a plugin for Twinmotion, which will link your Revit scene to your Twinmotion scene. Okay? And it is a really good option, but it is not what I'm going to teach. Because Many of you, probably about half of you, your laptops are not going to run very well with both of those softwares open at the same time. And a third piece of software trying to manage those two pieces of software running together. It just causes a lot of crashes. So that's not the method that I teach. Okay? I teach this method where we're going to export the geometry as an FBX, and we are going to import the geometry as an FBX. So that way you can open Revit or form it, export, close. Open Twin, import. It is the most stable way to use the software. Okay? You can totally on your own time dive into the direct link system, but really it's designed for a fairly powerful desktop computer. Not so much the laptops that we have in the $500 to $2,500 price range. Okay, it's really a system designed for a more powerful system. And that's one of the first things. Well, it's crashing all the time. I'll say, are you using direct link? A lot of times I'll hear yes. And I'll show the method that I teach. Okay, so this is designed it's not quite as fast, it's not quite as efficient, but it's much more stable. Okay, landscape and point clouds, two new things. We won't get to those in the scope of this class. Okay, so I am importing geometry. I'm clicking the open button. I'm going to my desktop and I'm grabbing Jordan Valley FBX and import. And if you notice, first thing, I don't even know where it is, which is a little bit of a shame, but I don't even know where I navigated to. So I'm going to start by selecting that Jordan Valley FBX in my scene graph and hitting F. And that snaps it into focus. This little widget right here for things, again, that is at the origin. Right? So if we look at format, that's my origin, 0, 0, 0. That widget is going to show up in Twinmotion at the 0, 0, 0. It's going to be relevant somewhat for format, very relevant for Revit. Students, you all have a tendency to model something 500 feet away from the origin. When I import it into Twin, it's going to show up 500 feet away. Okay, so be aware of that, okay? Now that I have this in, I'm going to navigate across to the center of it. And if you see, Format does a really nice job of this. Revit is not going to do this for you, but Format brought in the texture map, brought in the surface. And so I can dive in right away to doing some things like, oh, there's a tree there. Tree, trees. Let's go back to that turkey oak again. I think I missed it. Let's use that one. And I'm going to drop that tree right there. Change its size to be closer in terms of what it represents. And I can just start dropping stuff like crazy right into there. Okay. I also know that, hope all of you have been to Jordan Valley at some point or another. Yeah? Oh, shame, you should walk over there. Okay, especially today, it's nice. Not later this week, not so much. Today is super nice. This surface, and I'm not going to go too crazy with this because again, you guys don't want to watch me just like model and model and model. But I also have, so let's go back. Let's put it in the context of this list. That's my import. My next list down is vegetation. If I am working through architecture and I'm trying to be very precise, I place things out of this, right? Place a tree, a human, things like that. But if I am looking at larger context, there are systems where I can literally paint things in place. We'll come back to paths in a second. Right now, I'm going to use vegetation paint. I could totally paint trees. So let's do a little bit of that. So like, let's paint some trees right through here. I know that's a whole bunch of trees. I don't know exactly what kinds. So I'm just going to kind of guess. Let's take the oak tree, because that's native to the Ozarks-ish. And let's take a red oak also. And let's get a spruce tree. Okay, so I have 3 trees. I can select my paintbrush, and I can select a diameter. right? So I've got this diameter, and I can just paint those trees. Right across there. Cool? Mm-hmm. Notice that that brings in painted vegetation. I should rename that to trees. Let's zoom in here. The next thing I can do is another round of painted vegetation. So right here, this is going to show me the state, what I'm working in. Okay, so I can come back to this. Let's do vegetation paint. And I want to do a brand new group of vegetation. All right, so I'm going to click back up into my scene graph. So it's not just selecting my trees again. And I'm going to go here, vegetation paint. This time, rather than trees, I'm going to grab grasses. So this is a park, super, super refined. So let's do like lawn grass. And just because it's fun, let's throw in some weeds. Tall grass. So the tall grass, this time I'm going to say I don't want a lot of the tall grass. I'm going to change its density down. The nice manicured lawn, I want a bunch of. So if you notice, each one of these has its own values, and I can get even further into them with the setting. But now when I switch to my paintbrush, I can just go zip. And get all of that coming together. Go back to this. Oh, that looks terrible, right? Let's go back to painted vegetation. Let's select that lawn grass, and let's increase its density way, way up. Still looks terrible. I wasn't anticipating it looking that bad. That's awful. Painted vegetation. We got to get rid of the weeds. Delete. We've got to get more grasses in here. Let's get some long grass in there. And some dry grasses in there. And let's increase their densities as well. Cool? And notice, again, it's not still. This is stuff we're making a living world. Which is super ridiculous. I mean, nobody had Revit renderings that even had grass in them. It was just a green ground plane. Let's continue working our way down this menu. Vegetation scatter. There is a system in here where I can select a location and bring in a city map. It's meh. It's not that great, just to be blunt about it, okay? It works, but it's not that great for full-on visualization, okay? Usually everybody ends up building their own custom. Vegetation scatter allows you to do what I was just doing en masse. It puts everything everywhere quickly. Also, don't advise it because, again, it puts a lot of things. Rather than putting 40 trees in place, it's going to put 4,000. And, again, it's a fast way. If you're on a desktop and you're doing this a lot, it works. But it's not so good for a lot of the laptops we have. Paths. Let's go over paths really quick. Paths are great. So we have a road here, right? I'm going to go paths, vehicular path, and I'm going to choose my pen tool. And I'm going to go right down the center line of this road with my pen tool, with a series of left clicks. I hope. Yep, it's working. And left click, and left click, left clicks. And then I'm going to tap this. Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, I did something bad in there, didn't I? Because those are wiggling around. There we go. Lane offset. Lane count. Got 2 lanes. Lane offset, I need to do a little bit of that. 2 lanes of traffic. Oh, there's something really fun that I did over here. I should have been zoomed in way closer to this, you guys. Let's do that. So I'm just left clicking and dragging those out. Cool. I mean, this is sloppy. I should have been much cleaner about doing that, right? But just pretty immediately, I can get in and get cars going. I can increase the density. If I want Chicago, I can decrease the density if I want Springfield. Very, very cool. And if you notice, they are following the terrain, right? I don't even have to worry about. They're looking for what's my surface, okay? And I can do the same thing with humans, right? So we will get into more and more of this in terms of Twinmotion next week. Or not next week, next Wednesday. And we will continue to evolve this set of tools to exporting, so on and so forth. Cool?